one of the most uncomfortable positions you can pretty much ever find yourself in is being asked for your opinion on something when you don't really have a good of enough foundation to form a valid opinion. The temptation is always just to be like, blah, this, and just say something because you think you'll look stupid if you admit like, hey man, I don't know enough about that in order to have any kind of a valid opinion, right? This is a position I found myself in recently with somebody asking about Reformed theology and like what my opinions were on that. And I had the opportunity to just be like, dude, I honestly don't know. I can't define it well enough to have a valid opinion. And this is one of the keys that I want to talk about in this video, is that the way that you know if your opinion on something is valid is if you can explain the thing, whatever it is, in this case, Reformed theology, if you can explain the thing in a way that someone who believes that thing would be like, yeah, that's a good explanation, right? So for me, it's like, okay, can you give me your opinion on Reformed theology? And I'm like, I cannot give you a definition of Reformed theology in a way that would satisfy someone who is a firm believer in Reformed theology. Ergo, I don't know enough in order to have a valid opinion. That was why I ended up picking up this book, What is Reformed Theology by R.C. Sproul. It was an amazing experience reading through this because one, it's just an extremely well-written book. Two, is really fascinating topics and stuff. It's all stuff that I'm interested in, right? All this theology stuff that I'm interested in. But overarchingly, what it did was allow me now to be able to come to a place where I can explain the basic tenets of Reformed theology in a way that would satisfy someone who is a firm believer in that. Right? Which is the indicator that now I have a firm enough foundation to be able to understand and explain where I agree or disagree with the tenets of Reformed theology. Okay? And what I want you guys to know and how I want you to be thinking about this is when someone asks you about something like that, what's your opinion on this? Like a really great, very current example, right? Is everybody and their brother is a freaking expert on tariffs. Right? That's a big topic right now. Everyone's all like, oh, tariffs, right? And everyone's an expert and everyone knows everything about tariffs somehow, right? I'm sitting over here going, dude, I have read a lot and studied a lot of economics and microeconomics and macroeconomics and all of the stuff trying to understand economics. And I don't feel confident in saying like, oh yeah, I have a very good understanding and opinion and therefore valid opinion of tariffs, right? There's this thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is basically this idea that the less competent you are, the more confident you are in your opinions, right? And this is what you don't want to be. This is why reading is so important and why developing the skill of thinking is so absolutely crucial and important, because your self will deceive you. Right? You will feel confident. You will feel like you know a lot about a thing at the exact moment when you know the least amount about it and you have the least valid opinion of pretty much anybody talking. Okay. So when someone asks you the way that you know whether you have a firm foundation to build your own opinions on, again, we're going to go back to that, is can you describe the thing in a way that someone who truly knows the thing would be like, yes, that's a good description. Right? Because if you can, then you at least know that you have a firm foundation on which to critique the thing. An easy example of what happens when this goes wrong, right, is the idea like kind of everybody understands that Reformed theology is very interrelated with the idea of predestination, right? And when you start to talk about that, it's like, oh, well, predestination, like, well, what does that mean? And for most of us, it's like, well, I mean, I don't know. It means like Jesus, chose who's going to be saved and, not, I guess, And it's like, okay, well, but the terms of that are really important, right? Because Reformed theology is based on something called double predestination, right? Which is that those who are going to be saved are being saved and those who are going to be saved are not going to be saved, right? But there's two different flavors of double predestination. There's a thing called equal ultimacy, which essentially says that God is actively working to save those who are going to be saved, and God is actively working to not save those who are not going to be saved. That tenet is not actually something that people in the core basis of Reformed theology, that's not actually what people who have Reformed theology believe. They believe in a form of double predestination that is essentially God is actively working to save the people who are going to be saved, and God just doesn't do anything else active for the people who are not going to be and lets them kind of do their own thing. He's not actively working against them. He's just not actively working for them, and they can't save themselves, therefore they don't get saved, right? But it's these kind of distinctions where when you think you know and you feel so confident that you know, oh yeah, I mean, yeah, Reformed theology, it's about predestination and blah, 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 and, you know, Jesus, you know, making sure that the people who aren't going to be saved, right? It's like you're not even arguing what the actual truth of Reformed theology is. So your whole entire argument is based on a false premise of you think that this thing that you're arguing against is something that it's actually not. And this just becomes uber important in this world where everybody has an opinion, everybody feels like they have to say something all the time about freaking everything. And the majority of people do not have the foundation necessary to actually have built a valid opinion because they think something is true about this thing that is not actually true. And they would know that if they took the time to try to explain, you know, again, go back to your tariff example. Explain to someone who truly deeply knows what tariffs are and how they work. Give them your definition of a tariff and how it works, and see if they're like, yeah, no, that's a good explanation. That's basically it, right? Because I can almost guarantee you for 90% of the crap that we just spout off about and that we make videos about and that we're like, oh, this is my opinion. Most of it, if we try to explain what the thing that we're critiquing is to someone who truly knew what it was, they would be like, what? No, what are you talking about, bro? Reformed theology is not about equal ultimacy. I couldn't remember the term. You know, like that's not a Reformed theological tenet. That's like a offshoot thing of that, but that's not like the core of this thing. So if you're mad about that and critiquing that, like you're not actually critiquing Reformed theology, right? And it's just so important because we get into all these fights and we get into all this trouble based on our wrong assumptions because we feel confident. We feel like, well, I mean, I've been a Christian my whole life and I've heard about the Reformed stuff and I know some people who go to a Reformed church and like, I mean, I know it's like the tulip thing and it has something to do with predestination and blah, 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 blah. And like, I'm pretty sure I got the gist of it, right? When in the reality is we've done nothing to actually ensure that we have the gist of it. And we do this because it's super humbling to have to admit, bro, I don't know enough to have a legitimate opinion. I'm not well informed enough. And so rather than just pull something out of thin air and pretend like I know more than I do, I'm actually going to refrain from speaking on this yet until I can go and actually build something inside of me where I have a firm foundation to build my own opinions and thoughts on. And I don't care whether that looks like to you, like, oh, I'm just too afraid to say something, or like I'm stupid or whatever, right? The point of it is not what it looks like to other people. The point of it is being truthful with yourself to know, like, I don't know enough. It's very obvious that I don't know enough to have a legitimate opinion about this thing. So I'm not going to share my opinion about this thing. And if it's important, then I'm going to go do the work necessary to build the foundation to create a legitimate opinion. But otherwise, I'm just going to let it go. And I don't have to have an opinion because an opinion that's not founded on actual truth and actual understanding and actual reasoning is just pointless. And it's just smoke in the wind. And it's just me adding to the noise of a world that's already way too noisy, right? So there you go. That's, I think that's all I got. If somebody asks you and you don't know, admit that you don't know. And if it's important, go find a book. There's a book that can teach you about anything and everything that you need to know and that you want to know. So if it's important, take the time, find the book, read it, understand the actual position in a way that you can explain it to someone who already holds that position, and then form your opinion on it. And then it'll actually have something to say into the world, and you won't just be adding to all the freaking noise on the internet, which hopefully is not what I'm doing. Anyways, hope you're having a great day. I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.